Hello, good evening, good morning, citizens of the world. This is the Reproducibility podcast. It's been a long time, and we're getting back together again to share some new stuff. My name is Sam Parsons. I'm currently based at the Radboud UMC in the Netherlands, and I'm joined by Amy Orban.
Hi.
Over in Cambridge in the UK, and Seville Quibel.
Hello.
Also in Cambridge in the UK.
Yeah, in the same place. Not physically at the moment.
But close enough.
Close, and not just in spirit. So we're coming back because the podcast is due to return, and we're going to change it up a bit, including the host cast, I suppose. So the only way to do that properly is to have a nice little handover, I suppose. So we thought we'd start with a little bit of a catch up on what's happened, or what happened to us, I guess, but primarily what happened to the podcast over the last 2 years. I checked the dates, and it's maybe not to the day, but it's basically 2 years since we recorded our last episode. I think maybe about a month later releasing it. So it's been a while. So what happened?
Well, I mean, there was this whole pandemic thing that kind of made things difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, combined with the pandemic, but I think just also scheduling kind of increasingly became harder and harder as we were all in sort of very different places anyway. So kind of keeping things going became, I think, just quite challenging.
Yeah, and I think we also had a change we had an election of a new reproducibility team because I stepped down from that to make sure that we continue to represent ECR voices. So I think we also had a kind of handover there. So it's really great to be handing over the podcast as well to make sure that that's a continued resource to everyone out there.
Yeah, it's definitely time to do that.
Yeah. And as much as that, I have missed it. It was definitely a highlight for me back in Oxford, being able to just have the three of us kind of shoot the shit about that week's reproducibility related thing, whether it's
so
working on a particular practice or like promoting stuff. It was really cathartic, especially kind of early on.
I'm
very
amazed.
Much like the journal club itself.
Yeah, and it didn't feel like work. Like being in my department now, I often try to encourage ECRs to get up and do things, and everybody's quite stressed about, I think it's the pandemic, it's the workload and the pressures, but everybody is quite kind of selective of what they do and the amount of time they put in. And then I remember kind of my graduate school where we would just spend hours, thinking about reproducibility things and recording podcasts and organizing events. And I think it was such a major part of it that it was like part of my PhD. But yeah, I think that's, for me, is actually a quite major investment and achievement over time. That, I think looking back was more impressive than I thought at the time, to do. Yeah.
I mean, we thought we were just starting a local journal club, right? Where we could get together with the dozen or so other people that were around us at the time to be able to kind of talk about all of this stuff. I definitely never would have thought that Cambridge would have pinched the idea, and then everybody else would have joined us in this.
It escalated from there.
But I think it also shows, I think it's also something we lost a bit in the pandemic, being able to just sit in rooms and talk to other people about, a paper and feeling like we had time to do that. So I do think back in a kind of reminiscing way what a special community we had in Oxford, and then that sprung up all over, of people who did really care and had lunch together or hung out together to just discuss a paper, which I feel like in the pandemic we just all kind of lost that. And at least here in Cambridge, we're working really hard to get back to that level of community that is just harder to recreate online, because you need the people who are close enough who just say, let's do it, let's have that meeting. And building that community from scratch is really hard.
Yeah, we definitely see kind of the journal clubs that existed pre-pandemic had to change an awful lot. And then we've definitely lost journal clubs that just kind of couldn't continue because online wasn't working. We've also had journal clubs that seem to have done okay, actually even starting during kind of various lockdowns. But so much just seems to depend on the individuals involved, and I guess also partly the culture within the department. But I agree with Amy, and it's something I'm finding hard now, is that balance between, like, here's the stuff that kind of captures me and I'm interested by and I would really like to contribute to, but then also just, I don't know, I think everybody is a bit burnt out, right? and has to have that legitimate, what do I spend time on? And if you've got, I don't know, the kind of quote unquote typical office hours, and that's what you've got energy for, maybe you don't have energy for, at the very least, like leading extra stuff or running a podcast or something like that otherwise would be, yeah, I don't know, I'm very conscious of that when I'm talking to folk now, that, yeah, it would be great to do all this stuff, but I completely understand.
I don't know if it's similar for you, but I think part of it for me actually is also that because so many things are online now, you've got these endless options, that it kind of feels as if you can join all of these things, and then I find it much harder to then just focus on the things that actually work, and the things that will be much more worthwhile in the long run, which I think for me probably usually are the more local things. Right, because you've got all of these different things that you could join all the time because everything's accessible online now, but actually you're going to get much more out of, I think, much more out of the I know that I get much more out of the local things.
I think also
maybe that's part of what contributes towards that pandemic burnout as well, that you kind of have more options, but you also don't, and you don't get that nice break time in between different things where you walk from one thing to another, might get an ice cream with someone on the way. I don't know.
I think also, like, in the time of online talks where everything's recorded and available, it's like you have all of this wealth of material and information and talks about open science, and you can probably spend years looking at all the materials online, but actually thinking about things yourself and discussing it with somebody who you might work with, or who's in the same department or university, also helps you think deeper about things. And I think that sort of discussion of, well, we're not the experts, but let's think about this paper and think how it relates to us, is something that I've missed in a time where I can watch any of my open science heroes or heroines on the internet. Yeah.
And equally, so some of the meetings, at least locally to me now, have sort of switched towards a more hybrid setup. And I'm finding the opposite, where part of me is kind of like, do I have to be there in person? And partly that's because I'm still anxious about being around lots of people and trying to keep everybody safe and healthy and stuff. And that's just me with wife and baby at home kind of symptoms. But at the same time, it's a roundabout way of also kind of thinking that we kind of need both options in some ways as well. And that's been a challenge I think a lot of people have tried to think about coming into, like, what's next for some journal clubs, because some people virtual is working pretty well. And a lot of people get far more out of it in person. And hybrid for some places, I think can work really well, but for other places, it can be not.
I love how we're back to massive tangents already, but I want to add to this tangent, which is: have you been to a hybrid meeting where you were in person, not online? Isn't it like hybrid meeting? You're in person, so it's online.
I have. Where everybody logs in on their actual laptops.
Exactly. It's so weird. So I only did this for the first time last week, well, the week before maybe, where I was in person in a hybrid meeting. I've been in a hybrid meeting where I was online, but I did the other way around for the first time. And it's so weird because exactly, as Amy said, everyone logs into their actual own laptop so that everyone can still see everyone's faces or whatever, unless you have one of those cool owls. They're quite nice. But even with the owls, for some reason, people still log in on their own laptops as well because they want to see people right there. Anyway, it's weird. And then you just have that problem of where to speak to. And then people that you're in the room with start just talking at the laptop that they've got in front of them. And it's so weird. Anyway, sorry. Tangent time.
Well, maybe we can bring it back to what the podcast is going to do going forward.
Yeah. So we've had some discussions, and we really wanted the podcast to return, albeit in a I guess somewhat different, maybe revitalized kind of format. In part, we wanted to kind of make things work in places that were harder to make it work between the three of us. One of which is scheduling when you've got people in different places, particularly if you're interested in having guests on that live in wildly different time zones. It's probably better to try and have somebody do the interview or the kind of hosting that is maybe in a closer time zone. So there's the very kind of practical things like that. So we're aiming to have a kind of roughly revolving base of hosts and guests, so that it sort of doesn't place too much onus or emphasis on any particular people. So it would be very easy to start a podcast with 2 or 3 different hosts, and then it kind of becomes like their show, right? And reproducibility should never be, I don't know, just the Amy, Sam, and Sophia show, for example, because it's supposed to be more representative of the community. So we wanted to make sure that things are changed to represent that, and then that means that it can be a bit more of a dynamic kind of system. We're going to try and host things in seasons, or tea trays, or whichever pun we decide to go for. I'm not entirely sure what people have landed on yet. But the idea is like both to make it more a sustainable thing, but also to kind of continue with what we originally came up with or wanted to do the podcast with the idea for, was just so that early career voices are more represented in this space.
And of course, you are both now, as in you, Sam, and Amy, are both actual people with actual jobs now and PhDs. So that makes so yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still on a very temporary contract, I suppose. So I'd still call myself early career, but I guess that's up for debate.
I'll still call myself early career for grants. I'm in that stage. No.
As long as you're just under the years since PhD threshold, you count, right?
Yeah.
I think that might actually be an episode rant, in fairness.
I think it should be.
What is an ECR?
It's a weird concept. The concept of career research.
I now have PhD students who are involved in things like Riot Club and things. So yeah, very exciting to see them, and that's the podcast for them and not me. So yeah, glad to be handing over.
Yeah, I think it's going to be nice in terms of there's a good amount of interest to move things forward. There's kind of a small group of people that are currently involved, but there's a lot of ideas about how things can expand, how we can have either guest hosting or kind of a more dynamic what the community wants from the episodes. Like, one of the things that we've quite often had feedback from the Journal Club organizers specifically is kind of wanting more more content about how to set up, continue, make a journal club successful, attract new members, and so on and so forth. And for the people on the steering committee, like, we can ask people, we can put things up in a blog on the website, but we think the podcast is probably the nicest and hopefully a very accessible way of kind of gauging that kind of input from kind of the whole journal club community as well. Particularly now as things are starting to gradually ease back into whatever this, I hate the phrase new normal, I despise it, but whatever this kind of new normal thing is going to be, hopefully that is a way that we can kind of share everything while also it becoming something that is sustainable and people can kind of grab onto, while again highlighting the early career kind of efforts towards this. So yeah, I hope that sounds good to the two of you.
Sounds fantastic. Reproducibility Pod 2.0.
Hashtag the new normal.
Oh God.
Just to rub it in. No, it sounds fantastic. I'm looking forward to the first few episodes.
And I guess weirdly, because I'll be part of the organizing, I guess it's kind of my job to thank the two of you for like starting and being part of this from the start and just, yeah, making this what it is. And I'm going to be in a very similar position to Amy very soon in terms of kind of passing on of kind of my position, I guess, on the steering committee. And I imagine it's only going to be a couple of years before Sophia's going to be in a similar position as well. So we'll be, like, eventually ReproducibiliTea, this thing that we started, will be entirely out of our hands. And it will be its kind of own thing, which is kind of both exciting and also a little bit kind of, oh, wow, we did that. That feels good. So yeah, listeners, I guess, listen out for the new series of ReproducibiliTea, the podcast. We will do our best to share it, to include as many voices as we can, and we hope that you enjoy.
See you very soon.
And
hear you very soon.
Sophia, see you, Amy. Enjoy.
Bye.
You listen to ReproducibiliTea Season 2, Episode 1, Handover. Your hosts this episode were Amy Orban, Sophia Crevel, and Sam Parsons. You can find them on Twitter at OrbanAmy, @Crevelli, and @Sam_D_Parsons respectively. This episode was produced by Sam Parsons and edited by Jan Vornhagen. For more information on how to start your own journal club, get involved, or get in touch, go to reproducibility.org. Thank you for listening.